Mr. President, when I was home in New Hampshire over the recess, I had the opportunity, as I'm sure you did, to see all of the television ads that are being run by various candidates and special interest groups. And already, again, I'm sure this is true in Minnesota, it's true across the country, because of the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court, a decision that many of my colleagues talked about earlier today, the airwaves in New Hampshire were flooded with ads from essentially anonymous, unaccountable special interests. The question that I think we all should ask, and certainly voters across this country should ask, is who is really paying for these ads? Voters don't know. Sure, the ads give the special interest groups great mom and pop apple pie sounding names. But voters today have no way of knowing who's funding these groups and who's really putting up the money for these ads. Personally, I think there's too much money that's being spent on elections these days. During the 90s, when I first ran for election in New Hampshire for the state senate and then for governor, in New Hampshire we had a voluntary spending cap law. I think the law worked extremely well in limiting the amount of money that candidates would raise and spend. Under our state law, a candidate who didn't want to voluntarily limit campaign spending had to obtain a certain number of signatures from voters or pay a higher fee to get on the ballot. And when that law was in effect, almost every candidate chose to abide by the voluntary spending limit. Now, that had two very positive effects. First, candidates could spend less time raising money and more time talking to voters about the issues that they faced. And second, you needed to rely more on volunteers to help get your message out because you didn't have as much money to spend on ads and staff. And you also became very efficient at how you spent your money, something that I think is helpful when you get into elective office. Now, unfortunately, New Hampshire's voluntary spending cap law was struck down in a decision very similar to the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Now, if I look back at my 3 campaigns for the state senate in New Hampshire, I spent about $20,000 each time. Fast forward to today and the impacts of repealing that law by the Supreme Court in New Hampshire, and today candidates routinely raise and spend about 5 times that much. And in my campaigns for governor, I raised and spent about $1.25 million to $1.5 million based on what the campaign spending law was that year. Today in New Hampshire, serious candidates for governor raise and spend several times that amount. And now, because of the Citizens United decision, we can no longer limit the amount of spending by special interests on federal elections. But what we can still do, and what we should do, is require these anonymous groups to disclose who is funding their ads. That's exactly what the DISCLOSE Act does. It also prohibits foreign corporations from spending money to influence American elections. Now, Mr. President, I think unlimited election spending by anonymous groups and potentially foreign corporations poses a real threat to our democracy. And this should be a bipartisan issue. For years it was. As you know, I've heard you talk about this. Back in 1997, the minority leader said, and I quote, this is back in 1997, so over 10 years ago, that public disclosure of campaign contributions and spending should be expedited so voters can judge for themselves what's appropriate, end quote. And then just this spring, even after the Citizens United decision, Senator Cornyn, the senator who's leading the Republicans' election efforts, told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "I think the system needs more transparency so people can more easily reach their own conclusions," end quote. I agree completely. And if all the senators who are on public record supporting disclosure of campaign contributions voted in support of the DISCLOSE Act, we would pass the DISCLOSE Act today by a wide bipartisan margin. I hope, as our colleagues on the other side of the aisle think about the DISCLOSE Act, about what's happening to manipulate our elections in this country, I hope that they will join me and all of us who believe that the best way to make sure that our democracy remains strong and that we address how money is being spent in elections, that they support the transparency and the accountability that's available to voters in the DISCLOSE Act. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the floor.